Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Reporting Eligible live on this Friday evening, a somber Friday evening. We're just on the cusp of listening and hearing the great Julio Jones announcing his retirement via his Instagram. And like me, like most of y'all, damn, we wish it could have ended different, but nonetheless, the time is here. The time is now. Julio Jones announcing his retirement from the NFL. So we're going to take a little bit of time today just to reflect on the greatness that was Julio Jones in a Atlanta Falcon uniform. Bro Talk, for you, I don't know if for you, but for many, Julio Jones' time in Atlanta really helped others entrench their toes in the sand as far as a Falcons fan is concerned, right? There's many players that have had an impact. Some would say the years of John Abraham, Roddy White, that's one for me, Matt Ryan, but Julio Jones, where does he sit with you as far as your Falcon fandom, and what has Julio meant to you, man, since being a fan?
Well, first off, the GOAT. I like to think of him as the greatest receiver of all time when it comes to an Atlanta Falcon. And I'm thankful I was able to witness his greatness through his years, especially pairing up with Matt Ryan, Roddy White early in his career, Tony Gonzalez, like all the greats that have come through Atlanta. We got to witness it. And, if I'm being honest, I didn't expect him to be like, I expected him to be good, but the level that he was at, everyone always tried to compare the receivers to Julio Jones because he was the 2010s. Like, he was that guy. Once Calvin Johnson was gone, it was Julio Jones, and he stayed atop the mountain. And I can't say enough good things. I know you, before the show, you told me Roddy White's your number one guy. I love Roddy White. He embraces Atlanta more than any other Atlanta Falcon besides Matt Ryan. And to hear Julio Jones, listening to his retirement, say that he did it today on 404 because it is Atlanta's day. That is the reason he chose it. That just shows you. And he said it. He loved Atlanta. He loved this time here. And like you said, I wish it could have ended differently. You know what? It can't overshadow his greatness. The number 11 in Atlanta will be retired, and his name will be in the Ring of Honor, and he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Before we get into any more, let's shout out the real quick the folks in the chat. Tony Wright, Chris, what's going on? Gav Beater, my brother from Bleacher Report, what is going on? Rel, what's happening? Thank you, everybody. My brother Kinfolk Reese, what's going on? We got a quick super chat here from my brother Dwayne Ruffin. Super chat from my GOAT Julio. 100 respect. Most definitely, man. Falcons in 2011, April of 2011, made one of the boldest moves, moving up 21 spots, man. And at that time, man, coming off of year where Thomas Dimitroff really he honed in on the weakness or a weakness in this Falcons offense or in this Falcons team overall, which lacked explosiveness. And I remember that offseason, showing my age a bit here, if I can remember things from Thomas Dimitroff saying they lacked explosiveness on offense. That year, two great wide receivers were available in the top 10, A.J. Green, as we all know, out of the University of Georgia, and that man they call who? Julio Jones out of Alabama. Falcons traded 21 spots with a hopefully and soon to be another trade partner within the Cleveland Browns. But that trade, let's revisit. They traded their 27th pick in 2011, a second round in 2011, two fourth round picks in 2011, and their first round pick in 2012 to announce that with the 6th overall selection in that year, they took Julio Jones. And from inception, man, from game one, man, just the incredible size, the strength, the speed, 6'3", 220 plus pounds, just really a man amongst boys in the NFL level. He was already doing great things for Alabama, but when he came into the NFL, man, it seemed like he didn't miss a beat, man. Sure, it was close to cracking 1,000 yards in his rookie campaign. Before, a little bit of an injury bug that he hit during his tenure as a rookie, but nonetheless, man, Julio Jones was just that guy, man. He's a guy that shout out Eric Robinson, man, from ESPN. He put out a quick tweet when Ryan had that 3-catch game against the Colts, man. 3 catches, 131 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Julio made 3 catch games just look so cool and so easy, man. So yeah, everlasting impact Julio Jones will have on my fandom. As in terms of wide receivers, my GOAT, and that's probably an argument for a lot of folks. Folks will say Jerry Rice. Some will say Megatron himself, Calvin Johnson. I say the opposite. I say it's number 11, Julio Jones for me, man.
He's definitely, if you want to argue that he's not top 5, he's a top 10 all great wide receiver. You can ask any quarterback, he played with Brady at the end of his career. He played with Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, like all those guys just raved about his work ethic and his ability. Like DBs feared him so much because it always looked like he was going to go vertical. But he had some of the crispest routes at his size, even with a foot lingering injury. Like I remember the day we drafted him, and I think Thomas Dimitroff felt good about it once he saw, because at that point we didn't know if it was going to be AJ Green or Julio Jones, like who was going to be the first one off the board. And when the Bengals went AJ Green, I think that gave Dimitroff all the confidence in the world, saying we're going to go after this guy, and that literally stamped his regime by drafting Matt Ryan 3rd overall and then making that huge leap 3 years later and getting the greatest Falcon receiver of all time.
Absolutely. Miss Lisa Shepard, how you doing? Tariq Johnson, what is going on? Rel, what's happening? Yeah, man. It was just amazing, man. Yeah, from like I mentioned, man, from his rookie year to his last couple years here in Atlanta. Sure, some would say it was a bit lackluster, but it was Julio Jones still at the end of the day, right? We saw him in the COVID year versus the Minnesota Vikings still have that breakaway speed, so he was still having these DBs, like you mentioned, man, on skates, right? He's a guy for his size to be running routes, crisp routes at that, like an Antonio Brown, size guy, or Cooper Kupp like guy in size, but he just made it look so effortless, man. It's just his craft, his work ethic, man. He was real, he's a professional, but real humble guy, but he just allowed his work to show, that the Falcons didn't make a mistake, jumping all the way up to get him.
He absolutely paid off in the long run with all he did. What was the stat? Fastest to 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 yards. Yep. Yeah, a lot of people want to say, wish we had the touchdowns to go along with it. Sure. But because he commanded so much of the defense, the other players got the wealth when it came to the red zone. I mean, he was such a selfless guy. He didn't care about getting a touchdown. I'm sure it got to him at some point, but he's like, you know what? As long as we're winning, I don't care, because he had that instilled on him. And you talk about his work ethic. Who was the guy always getting the guys when an interception happened? It was Julio. Busting his butt to go make that tackle and make sure they weren't going to score. But, Matt Ryan made his mistakes here and there. The Jeff Heath hitting him as hard as he did in the middle of the year. That's an iconic hit. Hit sticking Marshawn Lattimore on Thursday night. Like he brought the hit stick as a wide receiver. And, it translated to his run blocking. Like the dude was so selfish or selfless. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
so selfless when it came to the team. And, man, it just, my wife joked about it. She's like, are you going to cry on stream? I'm like, I ain't going to cry.
Man.
I ain't going to cry. But
I told my wife, I was like, listen, man, it's a hard day today. It's hard. It's hard. She's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, it's just a hard day. Julio announced his retirement. It's tough.
And it's funny. I told my wife, and she was like, are you going to go live? And then surely enough, here we are, right?
We found some time. Listen, folks, trying to balance family life, work life, it's a struggle sometimes, man. So we found some good time today just to reflect on the time that was Julio Jones. And you mentioned about, making up for Matt Ryan's small mistakes, that I think Quan Alexander won on a Thursday night game, if I'm not mistaken, where he ran all the way back at the end zone INT. Julio, like a Clydesdale horse, running all the way down, man, the Georgia Dome just to run him down, man, was an amazing one. Let's talk about a little bit of the catches, man. What catches to you stick out the most? And if you have to bring up the catch, it's a safe space. Go ahead.
So obviously everyone, Even Ian Rappaport tweeted it out. The greatest catch in Super Bowl history that no one talks about because of the end result. And it really is. Matt Ryan put it in a spot where only he could go get it. And he knew they had that chemistry that he knew if anyone was going to get it, it was going to be Julio. You know, Luke Kuechly recently on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast talking about the Moss pick and what he had to do. And, you know, he was well covered. But Julio climbed the ladder and literally snatched it over his head. Like, I'm sure Kuechly saw the ball right here, and all of a sudden he saw some red gloves take it away from him. Another one was early, you know, when we played the Giants in the playoffs, you know, we were struggling that game where he leaped over the defender. And it's like, how did he come down with it? Against Green Bay, getting flipped upside down, still coming down with it. And so many more, so many toe taps in the end zone. Just put it in his area, and he was gonna go get it, dude.
Yeah. One catch, I think it's that Giants one. So that one, I was at that game at MetLife Stadium, and the Falcons were on their own territory. So Matt Ryan dropped back in the end zone, shotgun, and just put it out there. Just put it out there. And Julio was the tip. I thought it was a pick too. I think Prince Mukamara was the cornerback for the Giants at the time, and he was right there. But Julio tipped it, still came down with a one-handed catch, and then moments later, on a streak, beating Prince on a go route to put the Falcons first and goal, and then the rest is history. Devontae Freeman punched it in for the go-ahead touchdown, and which would be the game-winning touchdown for the Atlanta Falcons on the road against the Giants. But just the impact that he had on a game week in and week out. I know that defensive coordinators just hated him. They absolutely hated him.
They had the game plan for him because he was that guy. And look, Keith Simmons in the chat, the Colts game, rookie year, triple covered. Nobody saw the ball except Julio, and he came down with that. I was like, there's no way. Replay
my God.
He absolutely came down with it. The Seahawks one on Monday night where he went up. Didn't he get hit too?
He got hit, towards the end. Absolutely.
Kept his feet down. Inbounds. Just unreal, dude. Just unreal.
Just unreal. And another stat, you mentioned his accolades earlier, but the most with 250-yard games with 3, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Most 300-yard games as well.
Yeah, right. Oh, that 300-yard game. I remember that game very specifically. I know a lot of people do, but I remember it more so for one person's reaction, and that was Josh Norman, because the year after, he was baptized by Julio and always chirping, but he played for the Redskins, and when the Carolina Panther game came on, and he's like, oh my God, he got them boys for 300 yards. Julio went off for 300. An amazing feat, for a guy that you knew commanded the respect around the league. Julio Jones did. Another fantastic game, 250 plus yards against the Green Bay Packers on a Monday Night Football game. Lost season, but Julio was just Julio. Didn't matter, how bad the Falcons were or how out of it they were. Just continuing to put his best foot forward. And not worrying about the win and losses, man. Is just going out there and doing his job, man. So Julio, man, God damn it. Sucks, man.
It does. I'd love for him to sign a one-day contract, but I don't know if you watched his retirement announcement. There's one person he did not thank. Who it was?
Probably Arthur Blank.
It was the owner, Arthur Blank. So I don't know if he just forgot. I would highly doubt that because
I highly doubt that.
He thanked Coach Saban. He didn't thank Thomas Dimitroff. He thanked Coach Smith. He thanked Coach Smith. He thanked Matt Ryan. He thanked Roddy, Harry Douglas, like all his guys early on. But I don't know. I would love for him to do that so he could retire. I know Arthur Blank will put him in the Ring of Honor, whether or not Julio attends or whatever. I'm sure he will. I'm sure Matt will call him up and be like, "Come on, Julio, come on, it's all right."
This is very true too. I didn't hear him say the Atlanta Falcons, thank you to the Falcons organization. He did mention
other organizations.
He sure did.
The Titans, the Eagles, the Buccaneers. That was crazy. So I have a question for you. You've been to plenty of Falcon games.
Yeah.
Okay. Which moment that you witnessed in person, Julio Jones wise, is your favorite, or sticks out, or you remember the best?
I remember the Washington Redskins game in 2018. That was the year Steve Sarkisian was our OC, and there was a stretch where he couldn't get Julio going, couldn't figure out how to get Julio the ball until that game on a what was it, a wide receiver screen where Jake Matthews obliterated Josh Norman and broke Julio free for his first touchdown of the year. I was at that game at FedEx Field in an amazing environment, more so because it was all Atlanta Falcons. After the game, after it was all said and done, I know I put out a quick tweet, just me amongst the fans and everybody chanting ATL. But that one there in person was one of the best ones that sticks out. And right up there too, this jersey right here that's behind me, I got to meet the man, the myth, the legend himself, November 16th. Of 2016, on November 10th of 2016, against Philadelphia at the Link. He was the last player to come into the Falcons tunnel, and there was a sea of us there waiting for Julio to come in. I was, honored enough where I got the picture right there where he's signing my jersey, that one that's framed there, and he gave me his gloves, which is to the far left. So, dude, I mean, I got my Julio experience, man, plenty, bro. But it was cool, man. It was so awesome, man. So yeah, those are the moments that stick out to me the most, obviously. But obviously,
that's awesome. I was wondering, okay, that makes sense because I saw your video of what you tweeted that play. For me personally, it's hard to believe, but this is true. I've only ever been to one Falcons game, and it was in 2015 where Falcons came to Dallas. Okay. Tony Romo wasn't playing, of course, but the Cowboys were up early with Brandon Whedon. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, how are we losing to these guys? Second half rolls around, Julio Jones just pops off. And I remember him catching a deep over route.
Yes,
he hit it up the sideline. And I was sitting at that sideline where he reached out and dove for the end zone. I was right there, dude. I was next to some Falcon fans. Everyone was hyped, and literally we overcame a halftime deficit and won the game. That was such a fun experience to watch that in person.
Man, amazing. I remember that game too, man. He played like his life depended on it in the second half. A lot of great in-game adjustments, that the Falcons coaching staff did that year for that game. And yeah, they put him in the slot, man. An untraditional thing. You didn't, in that time, you really didn't see. And now it's popular. Now it's the big slot, they would call it, because it's an oversized receiver, matched up against, the safeties, the outside linebackers, or that nickel corner. But still, right? Not a popular thing, made popular at that time by Julio in that Cowboys game that broke a lot of the Cowboy faithful's heart. Needless to say,
that was fun.
Yeah, that definitely was fun, man. But yeah, man, we're just reflecting on Julio Jones, the great, man. Like we mentioned at the top of the stream, just a few minutes, just to put it out there, man. There's a lot of things that folks can say in negative spite. They don't, they didn't like the way that Julio exited the organization. At the end of the day, business is business, right? And these players, you want them to retire whichever team forever. It's hard to do. Those things, they don't happen often. Even the great guy that used to play for New England, I refuse to say his name, but you know what I'm talking about, didn't retire for that damn team. He went on to play for others. So, for Julio, man, he ended up going to three other franchises after it was all said and done. Sure, his better days were obviously behind him, but still, man, like I mentioned too, man, it's still Julio Jones. He would have still commanded that type of attention, man, regardless, man.
Miss Lisa, I think they are going to make a podcast.
And I think that's in the works.
I am so eager, just like all of you guys, so eager to listen to what they have to say. Because I know Roddy's not going to hold back. He's going to ask Julio those questions.
Hell yeah, he is.
Julio's a soft-spoken guy on the field and the media. Like, he never really liked the media and all that. But when he's around his boys, like, it's a completely different story. I'm really eager to hear what he has to say. And some of those funny locker room, stories, kind of like, I'm not expecting him to be like him, but kind of hearing the stories like Jeff Teague says on his podcast in the NBA, former Atlanta Hawk, just hearing the stories and how funny it was. Because I know Roddy could probably get the fun side out of Julio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So we covered some of the games, some of the moments. What else sticks out to you about Julio? Anything else that you appreciated from the Great 11?
I mean, what else could I say? Is there something that you have in your mind that you want to say? Let me, because I feel you're asking me, but really
I do. I think back at the games, right, in year 2 of his tenure with Atlanta, just the maturity that he showed from rookie to sophomore year, and I think back to that NFC Championship game. Yes, it's a heartbreaker to talk about, but that to me was like, I'm here. That was I'm Julio Jones.
Are you talking about the one against the 49ers?
49ers and that stout defense, Ahmad Brooks, Aldon Smith, Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis. My goodness, Ray McDonald in the middle of that defense. My God, I'm naming everybody in that one. Deshaun Goldson, Dante Whitner. The 49ers were stacked, and Julio just made that entire defense look like
nobodies. They were chumps.
Nobodies. Damn near that entire defense in 2012 for the 49ers were all Pro Bowlers, and Julio just made them look like nothing, man. And that's the effect that Julio had, man, in the early years. Just special shit, man. It was just unbelievable to watch him play, man.
And listening to back, it doesn't surprise me for you to say that, because listening to what Coach Saban had to say now that he's retired, and he goes on these podcasts and talks about it. Did you hear about the story of what Julio did with the younger, like, underclassmen? He pretty much, they were acting out or mouthing off to a coach, and he was a part of the wide receiver room. And at this point, Julio's an upperclassman, and he just pulled him off to the side. He said, "Hey, young buck, we don't do that here. That's not Alabama football. We don't act that way. We don't do things. We work our butts off and we go play as hard as we can on game day." And that just carried through. So for him to go through the Nick Saban program and him already having that mindset and even developing even more, I mean, he took it to the NFL and it showed in his work. Like, he worked behind the scenes and you could see it on the field. He was gifted, but that didn't take away from the hard work and everything he did, with his workouts, with his mechanics, all of it.
Beautiful, man. Millie Mills, what's going on, man? Did the careers finally say it? Julio was far better than AJ Green. Agree or disagree on that one?
By far, dude. Like, look, okay, 2010s. Let's play a little game, all right? And you be honest. I know this is a Julio Jones show.
Yeah.
Okay? You be honest. You tell me, would you rather? Julio Jones edition. I'm going to give you a name. Either say Julio or you say the receiver's name.
Got it. Let's do it.
You ready?
Yes.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Julio.
Antonio Brown.
Oh, Julio. Big boys play on the outside, just like Roddy said it.
AJ Green.
Julio.
Okay. Young DeAndre Hopkins.
Nuke? Still Julio.
Calvin Johnson.
That's the tough one.
There you go.
That's the tough one. For that one, I'm Megatron. Calvin Johnson was.
Hey, look, if there's anyone that can dethrone Julio, I think Megatron's the only one, right? But Julio was an all decades 2010 wide receiver. It was
absolutely
always him being compared to everyone else. Or, everyone else being compared to him. Oh, no, Julio's not number one. It's this receiver. No, it's not Julio. It's this guy. It's always who was the common denominator being compared. It wasn't like, oh, Antonio Brown's the best, not this guy. No, it was always Julio Jones. That's how good he was.
Yeah. And to speak on, just Megatron a bit, Julio was amazing 2011, and then a couple years later, Megatron came, burst onto the scene, and that was a whole different animal, another different size spectrum, different weight, still running that 4.3 speed, which is it was unreal. But we can say Julio was one of the starters in that size weight class to get it done. So yeah, man. Not gonna spend too much time, guys. Just trying to reflect on the good that was, or the great that was, number 11, man. we selfishly feel like these players should play forever, man. But obviously, everybody has that end date, man. And Julio Jones came today on 404 day, as he mentioned, wanted to do it for the city of Atlanta. Big shout out to the city of Atlanta, from on Julio's regard. That's why he did it. So, man, anything else you want to add, man, before we go ahead and part, bro?
Ring of Honor. And when his name comes up for the Hall of Fame, he is a first ballot. I know a lot of people like to argue that Matt Ryan isn't. I still think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Julio Jones, 100%. Will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And damn it, they better put the Atlanta Falcons as the team for his Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for sure, man. There's the let me see. Boom, right here. Ends his career with 13,703 yards, average 15 yards per catch, man. 66 TDs, sure, that could be up a little bit more.
Imagine in 2013 he doesn't get hurt.
Imagine. Right, and he got hurt on that Monday night game against the Jets versus Antonio Cromartie, where that's where he broke his foot.
Cromartie even said Julio is a top 5 receiver he ever went up against.
Yeah,
top 5 hardest receiver to go up against.
Yeah. Oh man. But you see the accolades there, man. Just Julio Jones, just a different animal, different breed, man.
7-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, snubbed plenty of times because of what the logo was on his helmet.
Yep.
He should have been an All-Pro every year except for 2013 when he got hurt.
Yep. 100%, man. 100%. You go back to that monster 2015 year, 1,871 yards, man. I mean, what more can we say, man? We were spoiled.
I will say last thing is I'll never remember he was going on a record. He had a record. What was it? It was 2019. And what was it? It was like most consecutive season with 1,400 yards. You see that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep.
I'll never forget Dirk Cutter for not getting him that record.
Oh, shoot. Yes.
You remember that?
I do. Remember that?
It was the last game of the season, and all he needed was one more catch. 6
yards.
Dirk Cutter couldn't get him 6 yards.
Damn it. We tried to stay away from the negative light, but Dirk Cutter, you did us one, man. You prick.
Yeah, Dirk Cutter.
What can we say, man? But yeah, man. Just something quick for the masses here, man. We definitely appreciate everybody taking just a little bit of their time away from their Friday evening, to rock with your boys right quick, man. Just a quick pop-up show, just to sing praises for the great Julio Jones, man. The great Julio Jones, indeed, man. So, Bro Talk, let the folks know where they can find you, man.
Oh, you guys already know, at BK Squared on Twitter. I've been compared to Coach Raheem Morris. And the masses don't like Raheem Morris, so I don't know if that's good or bad. Okay? But anyways, I will give you my honest thoughts. You guys know this. My inside analysis. I may be right. I may be wrong. I'm here to learn because I love the game. You can also catch me at Dirty Bird Central on YouTube and TikTok daily, posting of the NFL, not just Falcons. So if you enjoy the NFL as a whole, check me out there.
Cool, man. Cool. Oh, of course, man. I'm your boy Berto, host of the 95 North Falcons Talk Show on YouTube. If you haven't been to either one of our platforms, man, please subscribe to the Dirty Bird Central and 95 North Falcons Talk Show, both found on YouTube. You can also find me on Bleacher Report weekly, Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. I'll be there with weekly topicals for these Atlanta Falcons. Been doing a couple mock drafts and having some insight on these Atlanta Falcons via my perspective. Please also tune in April 17th. There will be a special on Bleacher Report, a 3-hour live event mock draft, all 32 teams. There will be all 32 representatives from all 32 teams. I just double said that. That's how tired I am. But nonetheless, it's going to be a banger of a show provided by Bleacher Report. So hopefully you guys show up and show out when the Atlanta Falcons come, and I will be there to make the selection. Will I trade back or will I stand pat at 15? Got to tune in to find out. But until then, we'll give you Friday evening back. We thank you again for coming through. Julio, thank you, brother. Thank you for everything. Forever a GOAT. Forever that man, Julio Jones. Peace, everybody.